Today I'm going to be looking at options to replace the kickstand sensor. I'm thinking about putting a bypass in the line. So the function, the kickstand, essentially when you put the kickstand up, there's a plunger which kind of looks like this. And essentially when the kickstand goes up, the spring-loaded plunger comes in and completes a circuit from this wire, which feeds into a connector, which goes to the ECU. There's a couple of reasons why you may need to replace the kickstand or the sensor. Sometimes people have sensors which are a little flaky, and then essentially the engine will kill. It will kill the engine if this is open. It thinks the kickstand is down, so that's why some people bypass this sensor or replace it. Other times you need to remove the kickstand if you're running with an organization, doing a race, something like that. So I'm going to take the kickstand off in the future, but right now I'm trying to figure out where the terminus for this connector is, so that I can put in a bypass so that I can return the functionality of the kickstand and still have the safety feature. That's my plan. Still waiting on the bypass, but to come in from Woodcraft, so that'll be another time. But right now we're going to take a look at the some of the options. So instead of running that bypass, what you could do is, like with this line, you could snip the line, and this would still be connected to the ECU. You could snip the line somewhere and then tie the two leads together, and that will short circuit, or that will complete the circuit, and then the ECU will always think that the kickstand is up. The downside with that is that if you actually do have the kickstand down, you can still put the bike in gear and ride off. And the kickstand is actually really, I know some people just keep the kickstand off all the time. That's great, but it is a useful item. So where do we find this terminal? This is a 2015 R6, by the way. We look at this, where this wire is, we can trace it up, and it goes up here, and then the wire actually is right in here. So now we see that this is the wire which comes from the kickstand sensor, and then it heads that way. We know it ends up somewhere in this region right here, but we're not exactly sure where and then how to access it. So actually I'm going to take the gas tank off and take this mounting bracket for the gas tank off, so that we could see kind of the whole picture on what's underneath here and how to access it. Okay, so now the gas tank is off, and trace this line. The line that comes from the kickstand sensor is right here, and I've actually pulled a little bit more of the slack out of the line, so I have something to work with. Gas tank is off, and then the next thing, you need to take this piece off, this bracket which holds into the frame. I already removed the nuts. And so if we follow this line, you can see that, sure enough, right in here, underneath that bracket, behind the foam, this is where that connection is. So the jumper I'm going to get from Woodcraft is basically we're just going to disconnect these, and they're both black. I know it's ridiculous to see that. But this is the end of the wiring that goes to the kickstand sensor, and then right here is the connection which heads into the ECU. So we're going to disconnect this and put the jumper here, so it essentially just closes the circuit, and it always thinks that the kickstand is up. So when that comes in, I'm going to give that a try and see how that works out. So we're back at it here. And here's the cable, or here's the cable that comes from the side stand, and essentially I had to pull some of this insulation back and lift this up, and see that actually connects to the ECU harness right here. So this is the connector which goes to the ECU, and here's the connector which runs down to the kickstand. And you see there's actually a piece of it was taped down to this reinforcement right here. So basically I had to take that out, basically so I'd have a little bit more play. And the goal is really so that when everything is assembled together and the bracket goes on top, I can change out the connector as needed without disassembling everything. So here's actually, so first of all, here is the part which, here's a look at the part that goes to the, from the kickstand. And here's the feed which goes into the ECU. So we have showed up this little plug from Woodcraft, and essentially you can see this is just shorting this out, and plug that into the ECU, and we should be all set. So why am I doing this? So this is really, I'm doing it this way so that I can retain the functionality of the kickstand and the fault without cutting wires. The other thing I've seen people do is they'll take something like an electrical plug and just jam it in here, and I mean that'll work too, but this is really kind of form-fitting to the plug designed by Yamaha. And obviously I'll have to put this, I'll probably tie this off somewhere in here so that I can have, so I don't lose it. I mean it was only about $12. It wasn't super expensive, but I mean doing it this way, I can plug this in here, short the signal for the kickstand, but then when I need to put the kickstand back on, I could just remove this and then reattach this. Or the other case is if you sell a bike, some people want the functionality of the kickstand that way also. So I'm going to try this, put this in here, and we'll see how it works out. So here's how I tied everything together. Here's the jumper to basically short circuit that the kickstand remote, and I basically use some tether to tie that to the original sensor, or the original plug which goes to the kickstand. So that way both of these will never get lost. And so right now I'm just going to leave this kind of tucked in, and then kind of shove this down here, try later on, make sure that works, since I have the gas tank off, so I really can't do that right now. But unfortunately with that bracket, which will sit here, it's still going to be difficult to get this to change this out without removing this. I don't really think there's a way to do that. I mean, I'm just doing it now with everything loose. So unfortunately, probably gonna have to take this off, or at least loosen this. Even when it's on the gas tank, this will flip up. That's essentially how you get the battery out as well, and then that will enable them access to switch those wires around if needed. But anyway, that's what I ended up doing. So